Hi, everybody. This is Lynn Serafin from TrentinoGenealogy.com, and today is the 4th of May, 2024. And I'm just getting over the flu. I was really, really sick up until even just a few hours ago. I'll probably get sick again later, but my throat is a little bit rough, so bear with my voice while I'm talking. The reason why I wanted to make this video right now is to talk to you about that poll that I posted in the group about how many surnames are there in the province of Trentino. Now, I gave a variety of options. Somebody pointed out to me that, well, actually, if you vote low, because I said 100 plus, 200 plus, things like that, if you vote low, they're all correct. But really, I meant, like from 100 to 200, 200 to 500. That's kind of what I inferred. Most of you got that. Now, what's interesting is that there was really no consensus amongst the group. A lot of times when I post these polls, you'll see a consensus where the majority of people seem to think one thing. In this case, it was really, really spread out. Over 100 of you voted, and pretty much every single option was dispersed. And now I just want to, for those of you who have voted, and even if those of you who have not, let's come back to this question. How many surnames are there in Trentino? And think about this fact, because I kind of framed it by saying, well, it's just one province. It's not a whole country. And it's a lot of rural areas. It's not very densely populated. How many surnames could there possibly be? Well, actually, the answer is a lot more than you might think. Let's think of it this way. In Trentino, there are over 400 parishes. Now, some of these parishes are curates and parts of other parishes. So even if we say, there's 425 parishes, I can't remember the exact number, but somewhere around there, that a whole bunch of them are actually kind of parishettes, of other parishes. And so they would be included in those other parishes. So even if we knock that figure down to, 350, well, if you then say, well, if this larger, well, let's make it 400 because that's what a lot of people think. So let's just think in this number. So let's say for each parish, there are 20 surnames in each parish. Well, that's automatically going to bring you up to 8,000 surnames automatically. And so even if you bring it down to like I was going to say 350 and you say 20, that's already going to bring you to 7,000 surnames. And frankly, in the larger parishes, there are a whole lot more than 20 surnames per parish. Surnames tend to live in certain areas. They come from places. You can almost identify where a person comes from by the surname. Some surnames repeat in a lot of different places because they're either patronymics or common nicknames or common occupations, like Ferrari, for instance. Those kinds of surnames will appear in different places. But a lot of surnames you can identify very much because they just come from a certain place. Once you study a lot of Trentino genealogy, you get to know where these surnames come from. And when I say come from, I mean at least to the high medieval era, that period of time, or the late medieval era, to like the 1400s and that period of time when I say that. So the answer to the poll was maybe at least 8,000. Now there's this book that I've mentioned many times. This is the Cognomi del Trentino, Guida del Cognomi del Trentino, and it's by Aldoberto Luzza, and it says 18,000, over 18,000 surnames. Now I've got to tell you, he doesn't. He misses some, and this is a very big book. I use it quite a lot. It is kind of a Bible of surnames, but I've got to say, his approach is completely linguistic, not genealogical, which means if a bunch of surnames have the same root, he clumps them all into the same category. He does not trace them through, the different families. And this is a bit of a problem if you're a genealogist, because some surnames that have very similar roots to others, they actually have a very different history from others with similar roots, and they they aren't necessarily linguistically quite the same. Sometimes they are, but they're certainly not historically the same. So this is a very useful book on some levels, but I've gone way. I'm afraid to say. I don't want to say I love this book and I cherish it. Um, and it's hard to find, I think. So, but it's not as accurate. It's not as useful for a genealogist as you might want if you're looking for your own family history. That's why I write surname studies, because I'm looking from a genealogical point of view, not just a linguistic point of view. Linguistics can also tell you things. They're almost like a DNA footprint, but they aren't always across all the same surnames with the same kind of obvious root. Anyway, so if he did over 8,000, he says in there, and I know he's missing some. Do I think he's missed 2,000 of them? Like, are there more than 10,000? I don't think he's missed that many. My best guess, and also he leaves out some surnames that have been extinct for a long time, which, I don't. When I'm making trees, if I find a surname that's gone extinct, it's there in the tree. But so I don't think he's missed 20% of the surnames that ever existed. I really don't think he's done that much. So, missed that much is what I'm trying to say. So I don't think there's more than 10,000. I could be wrong, but I think there's more than 8,000. So my best estimate is 8,000 to 10,000 surnames. That's a lot more than most of you voted for. I think only about 20% of you, or fewer than that, said 8,000 and above. And so it's quite surprising, isn't it? And yes, there are loads of surnames that have gone extinct over the centuries. And so those are not necessarily always addressed in that book. Anyway, I thought you might find that interesting. We have a very rich history, very diverse, and there's a lot to be learned within the names themselves. The names tell a story. They tell who was a patriarch, or they tell about occupations. They tell about personal characteristics, or about something that happened to that person, or about where that family came from. That's where these surnames, that's what these surnames tell us. And the more we study them, the more interesting and more fascinating they can be. And that's, why they're my passion. So I hope you enjoyed that poll, and I hope some of you felt very surprised by the results. So there are at least 8,000 surnames in Trentino, and I'm sure there's probably closer to 9,000. I'm not sure if there are 10,000, but there may have been. Don't know. And of course, we're talking historically. So when I say this, I'm talking about before the 20th century. So sometime between the medieval era to the 20th century. That's my approximation. Anyway, just my estimate, and also Aldo Bertolucci's estimate. So I hope you find that interesting. Take care. Ciao, ciao. Bye.